Have you ever met someone who just doesn't get rattled? No matter what life throws at them, a harsh word, an unexpected setback, even the chaos of daily life, they remain calm, grounded, untouched. Almost like they're walking through the world in slow motion, while the rest of us are stuck in fast forward, bumping into things, falling apart. It's almost infuriating, isn't it? Because for most of us, especially as we grow older, it feels like life only gets louder, not quieter. One moment of disrespect, and we carry it all day. One bad conversation, and we replay it for a week. We try to be peaceful, but the world keeps pushing buttons we didn't even know we had. And yet, some people walk through storms as if they're strolling through gardens. They don't just survive chaos. They seem to move above it. Why? Are they just lucky? Were they born with thicker skin? Or have they figured out something the rest of us haven't? That's the question we're exploring today, because this isn't just a video about keeping calm. This is a deeper journey into something far more powerful. A path taught by the Buddha, walked by many, and accessible to all, especially in the later chapters of life, when we're finally ready to let go of what doesn't serve us and protect the peace we've spent a lifetime earning. Let me tell you a story. There was once an elderly monk who lived in a small village, nestled between the mountains. Every morning he walked the same quiet path to the marketplace, sandals scraping softly against the dirt, hands folded behind his back, his eyes full of gentle stillness. One day, as he passed through the square, a young man, angry and impatient, stood in his way and began to shout at him for taking too long. He insulted him, mocked his robes, even cursed the way he smiled. But the old monk didn't flinch. He simply looked at the man, nodded slowly and replied, "I see your suffering is loud today. I'll walk more quietly." And then he kept walking. The villagers watched, stunned. Some praised the monk's wisdom, others scoffed, calling him weak for not defending himself. But the monk's peace remained unshaken, not because he ignored the world, but because he understood it. This story isn't about passivity, it's about power, the kind that comes not from domination, but from detachment, the kind of power that lets you choose your inner state, regardless of the noise around you. In this video, we'll explore the timeless Buddhist practices that allow you to become that kind of person. A person who listens deeply but doesn't absorb negativity, who pauses instead of reacting, who walks through chaos with a soft step and an undisturbed heart. Because after 60, peace isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. And if you've ever wondered whether it's still possible to find that kind of peace in today's noisy world, the answer is yes, but the work starts within. Let's walk together now, quietly, steadily, into the first teaching. Part 1. Understanding the root of emotional disturbance. We often believe our suffering comes from the outside, from what someone said, what didn't go our way, what the world threw at us when we least expected it. It's a belief that feels so true. Especially as we grow older, life becomes a mosaic of hurts and hardships, people leaving, bodies aging, plans unraveling, and the natural instinct is to point outward. This made me upset. That ruined my day. But here's the quiet truth. Buddhist wisdom gently offers what disturbs us is not the thing itself, it is the meaning we attach to it. There's a story the Buddha once shared that echoes through centuries. A man approached the Buddha, deeply troubled by someone who had insulted him in front of others. "How can I find peace when people shame me?" he asked. The Buddha smiled calmly and replied, "If someone offers you a gift, but you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man hesitated. "To the one who offered it, of course." Then said the Buddha, "If someone offers you anger, but you do not accept it, To whom does the anger belong? That lesson hits differently as we age. We realize we've been carrying burdens that were never really ours. The cruel words from someone years ago. The disappointments that lived in our chest long after the moment had passed. We replay these things like a broken record, not realizing that the needle is in our hand. Take a moment and think. How many times have you felt consumed by something small? A look, a tone, a delay, and yet someone else in the same situation might have shrugged and moved on. Why? Because the event didn't cause the suffering. The interpretation did. This isn't about blame, it's about liberation. Buddhist teachings remind us that our mind is the source of both bondage and freedom. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha teaches, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If we truly let that sink in, it changes the way we move through the world. That driver who cuts you off, his anger isn't yours to carry. That friend who didn't call back, their silence isn't a statement about your worth. Even the aches in your bones, though real, are softened when your mind isn't resisting them. It's not easy, especially not in later life, when the heart is heavier with memories and the skin is thinner to the touch of time. But it is possible to return to your breath, your center, your quiet place where peace begins, not in perfection, but in perception. So here's your first invitation. Begin to notice the moment you assign meaning to things. Pause. Ask, is this real, or is this my story about it? And just like that, you'll start to see suffering doesn't live in the event. It lives in the echo we keep feeding inside. And the beautiful part is, once we see this, we can stop feeding it. Part 2. The practice of detachment. Observing, not absorbing. There's a quiet strength in those who can witness chaos without becoming part of it. You've likely seen it, perhaps in an old friend, a spiritual elder, or even a stranger at the market. Someone who, when the world lashes out, does not flinch. They don't rush to defend, don't strike back, don't even seem to carry the dust of it home with them. And you wonder, how? How can someone remain so unaffected by such sharp energy? The answer, in the Buddhist tradition, lies in a single beautiful word: detachment. But let's pause here, because detachment is often misunderstood. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you wall off your heart or become cold and distant. Quite the opposite. In its truest form, detachment means to care deeply, without clinging, to feel, without being consumed, to see clearly, without getting entangled. There's a story from the Zen tradition that brings this to life. A young monk and an old master were walking in silence through a muddy path after a long rain. As they approached a river crossing, they saw a young woman struggling to pass through the deep water, hesitant and afraid. Without a word, the master gently picked her up, carried her across, and placed her down safely on the other side. She bowed gratefully. The two monks continued on. Hours passed in silence before the younger monk finally burst out, "Master, we're not supposed to touch women. Why did you carry her?" The old monk looked calmly at him and said, "I put her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This story holds a timeless truth. So many of us are still carrying things long after they've passed. An argument from yesterday, a hurt from last year, a betrayal from decades ago. We've absorbed them so deeply that they've taken root in our bodies, in our breath, in our hearts. But detachment is the choice to put things down. It begins with observation, the practice of watching thoughts and feelings rise without grabbing onto them. It's like sitting on the porch and watching cars pass on the road. You see them, you note them, but you don't jump in and ride with everyone. Someone says something rude. You observe your reaction, the tightening in your chest, the heat in your face, but you don't become the anger. You say inwardly, "Ah, anger is rising," and then you let it pass. This is how mindfulness serves detachment. Water, the stepping vipassana, be still, the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha's foundational teaching on mindfulness says, one abides observing the body as a body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, and mental phenomena as mental phenomena, clearly seeing with equanimity. The practice is subtle, but for those in their later years, it becomes even more sacred, because now you understand the cost of absorbing every storm that passes. You've lived long enough to know that not every battle is worth the scars it leaves behind. Not every word needs a reply. Not every emotion deserves a home. And most of all, not everything is about you. So here's your practice. Today, and each day after, when discomfort arises, observe, don't absorb. Notice the feeling, name it, breathe into it, and watch how it dissolves when you don't feed it with your resistance. In that simple act, you step out of the storm and into stillness. You become not the sponge but the sky, vast, open and untouched by passing clouds. Part 3. The Power of the Pause, Mastery in Stillness. There's a moment, a brief, flickering moment, between something happening and your response to it. It's not loud, it doesn't announce itself, but it holds the power to change your entire life. In that moment, you can either react, as most of us have done for decades, or you can pause. And that pause, my friend, is the birthplace of your freedom. We've been taught, often without words, to react instantly. Someone interrupts you, snap back. A loved one forgets something important. Feel offended. Life throws a curveball. Panic. It's automatic, like a spark hitting dry wood. But the Buddha taught otherwise. He taught the noble art of stopping, of interrupting the pattern long enough to choose a different way. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha said, "Just as a solid rock is not shaken by the storm, even so the wise are not moved by praise or blame." How does one become like the rock? It begins with the pause. Let me tell you a story. There was once an elderly teacher, not a monk, just a simple man who had lived a long life filled with both loss and beauty. One day, a young neighbor came to him, fuming. "My friend lied to me," the boy said. "I want to confront him right now before my anger fades." The old man smiled gently and said, "If a fire starts in your house, would you pour oil on it or water?" The boy looked confused. "Water, of course." "Then wait," the old man said. "Your anger is fire. Wait until you are water." It sounds simple, doesn't it? But that moment of waiting, of not rushing into reaction, is one of the hardest disciplines to master, especially as we age. We've carried emotional reflexes for years, and they're deeply grooved into us like old footpaths in the woods. But that's what makes the pause so sacred. It is a decision against habit. It's you reclaiming your peace. The power of the pause is not in suppressing your emotions, but in holding them gently, like a parent holds a crying child. You don't deny the emotion. You simply don't let it drive the car. Try this in daily life. The next time someone says something that stings, pause, take one full breath. Ask yourself, is what I'm about to say a response or a reaction? This small breath, this brief window, is where wisdom lives. It allows you to speak with clarity instead of heat, to choose compassion over correction, to protect your peace instead of proving your point. And here's the secret. The more you pause, the longer that sacred moment grows. Over time, your reactions will no longer own you. You'll speak more softly, move more deliberately, and people around you will notice, not because you're louder, but because you've become still, and stillness. Oh, it speaks volumes. So today, begin your practice. Not grand, not perfect, just one breath before the next word, one pause before the next decision. It's in this stillness that your true self, wise, calm, unshakable, is revealed. Part 4. Reclaiming your energy. Don't give away your peace. It's strange, isn't it? How we spend our younger years chasing things we think will give us energy, success, love, recognition, control, only to realize as the years stretch on that what truly matters is not what we gain, but what we preserve. And nothing is more worth preserving than our peace. Yet how easily we give it away. A single harsh word from a stranger, and the whole day feels ruined. A family member dismisses your feelings, and suddenly your heart tightens like a fist. A bit of bad news on the television, and your mind spins, your chest clenches, your hope begins to slip. We hand over our energy, our sacred, hard-earned peace, as if it were candy at Halloween. But here's a truth the Buddha pointed to, softly but unmistakably: no one saves us but ourselves. No one can, and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path. In other words, your energy is yours, your calm is yours. Your inner garden is not a public park. It doesn't need to be trampled by every passing opinion, every gust of drama, every unkind gaze. There's a story about an old woman who lived on the edge of a bustling city. Her house was humble, but peaceful, filled with wind chimes and teapots and quiet laughter. One day, a quarrelsome relative came to stay, constantly complaining, criticizing, disturbing the stillness she had cultivated. Finally, the woman looked at her and said gently, "You are welcome to visit my home, but not to scatter your storm inside it." We would do well to remember her words, because too often we invite other people's emotional weather into our sacred space. We let their thunder become our fear, their frustration become our bitterness, their gossip become our own tangled thoughts. But peace, your peace, is not something to prove or to defend. It's something to protect, like a candle in the wind. It must be shielded, not because it's weak, but because it's precious. In Buddhist practice, this is known as guarding the sense doors. It means watching carefully what you let in, through your ears, your eyes, your thoughts. It's not about closing yourself off from the world. It's about not letting the world dictate your inner life. Ask yourself gently, whenever something rattles you, is this mine to carry? So often the answer is no. A person's anger is often their own pain, their judgment, their own insecurity, their criticism, a mirror they're too afraid to look into. As you grow older, you have earned the right to walk away from what drains you. You have the wisdom to know what deserves a response and what only deserves silence. And you have the grace to say, "This moment may be chaotic, but I do not have to join it." So here's your practice, dear friend. Each morning before the world pulls at you, sit quietly and place one hand over your heart. Remind yourself, "My peace is mine. I do not give it away today." And then carry that promise into the day like a soft shield, because you are not a dumping ground for other people's storms. You are a sanctuary, and sanctuaries are meant to be kept sacred. Part 5. Emotional immunity. The freedom of not reacting. There is a kind of freedom, a rare, radiant kind, not the freedom to go anywhere or do anything, but the kind of freedom that lives inside you, the kind that says, "You cannot disturb me, I no longer give you that power." We might call it emotional immunity, the graceful, grounded ability to remain centered, even when the world around you is spinning like a storm. Now, for most of our lives, we were trained to believe the opposite, that if someone yells, we must yell back. If someone disrespects us, we must defend. If life strikes us, we must strike something in return, or at the very least, stew in silence. But Buddhist wisdom tells us otherwise. It whispers, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned, and burn we have, haven't we? How many sleepless nights have we spent reliving arguments that never deserved our energy? How many joyful moments did we cloud over with a single bad memory or an imagined slight? It's not weakness to feel, but it is suffering to let emotions drag us wherever they please, like a boat without an anchor. Emotional immunity doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care deeply, but you choose not to react impulsively. You allow space between the stimulus and the self, and in that space, you reclaim your power. There's a teaching in Zen that says, the second arrow is optional. What does it mean? Well, imagine this. You're walking peacefully when suddenly someone insults you. That's the first arrow. It stings, it's painful, it's real. But then you begin to replay the insult, internalize it, attach stories to it. They must think I'm worthless. Maybe I am, and you shoot yourself with a second arrow. That second arrow, the one we craft ourselves, does far more damage than the first. The practice of emotional immunity is about seeing the arrow for what it is and not shooting another one. Let me share a simple story. An old monk was sitting in meditation when a traveler burst into the temple, shouting insults and accusations. The monk remained silent, unmoved. After some time, the traveler grew frustrated and demanded, "Why do you not respond?" The monk smiled and said, "If someone offers you a rotten fruit and you do not take it, to whom does it belong?" We must learn to not accept the rotten fruit. Let the bitterness stay with the one who throws it. In practical terms, this means noticing when an emotion arises and choosing not to follow it down its usual path. Anger flares. Don't suppress it. Observe it. Fear stirs. Name it. Sit with it. Breathe into it. Let it rise and fall like a wave, without drowning in it. It may sound simple, but this is the work of warriors, inner warriors, quiet warriors, people like you who've lived long enough to know that peace is not handed to you. It is cultivated moment by moment, breath by breath. So here is your gentle practice for today. When something disturbs you, pause, feel the emotion, and say softly, "I do not have to act from this place." Then smile, not because life is perfect, but because you've chosen not to let it control you. And that, my friend, is real freedom. Part 6. Rewriting the inner narrative, changing the story. If you listen closely, beneath the silence, beneath your breath, you may notice something curious. There's a voice inside you. It isn't loud, but it's always speaking. It comments on everything: how you look, what others think, what today means, what yesterday says about you. It builds a story, piece by piece, moment by moment, and over the years we begin to believe it. But what if the story isn't true? What if the pain you carry isn't from the event itself, but from the story you've told yourself about it for decades? In Buddhism, this voice is often referred to as the storyteller mind. And like all storytellers, it doesn't always aim for truth. It aims for coherence. It wants everything to make sense, even if it means twisting the facts, even if it means sacrificing peace. For instance, someone doesn't call back, and suddenly the mind whispers, "They've forgotten you." You make a mistake, and it says, "You always mess things up." You wake up tired, and it concludes, "You're falling apart. You're too old. It's too late." These thoughts aren't reality. They're narratives. And the Buddha, with his infinite compassion, urged us to stop clinging to them. With our thoughts, we make the world, he taught in the Dhammapada. Speak or act with an impure mind, and trouble follows. Speak or act with a pure mind, and happiness follows, like a shadow that never leaves. There is deep wisdom in that, because while we cannot always change our circumstances, we can change the meaning we give to them, and in doing so, we change the experience itself. There's a beautiful parable about a man who lost his job, his savings, and his home, all within a year. He wandered to a monastery and said to the abbot, "I have lost everything." The abbot replied gently, "No, you have been given the space to begin again." It stopped the man in his tracks. He had seen only what was taken, not what was being offered. This is the power of rewriting the inner narrative, not to deny hardship, but to view it through the lens of wisdom, not fear. To ask ourselves, is this thought helpful? Is this story kind? Is this even mine? Or something I inherited from a wounded world? Because here's the truth, especially for those of us walking into our later years, we've earned the right to edit the story, to let go of old scripts that no longer serve us, to soften the voice that once shouted, "You're not enough," and teach it to whisper instead, "You are still becoming." Your memories are not mandates. Your past is not prophecy. So today, begin your gentle rewriting. When you notice a critical thought, respond softly. "That's just a story. Let me tell a better one." And then tell it. Tell the story of how you've endured, of how you've learned, of how you still rise each morning. Slower perhaps, but stronger in ways that no youth can match. You are not broken. You are becoming, and the story is still unfolding, beautifully, quietly, in the language of grace. Part 7. Living as the Unshakable One, a daily practice. Imagine, just for a moment, what it would feel like to walk through your day, not hardened, not indifferent, but untouched by the noise. Not because life has suddenly become easier, or the people around you have changed, but because you have. This is the quiet strength of the Unshakable One, a person who doesn't react out of habit, who doesn't bend with every wind of opinion, who doesn't crumble at every wave of uncertainty. They feel deeply and yet remain rooted. They care, but not to the point of collapse. They are still even when the world is spinning. But let's be honest, this isn't a trait you're born with. It's not something that magically happens once you hit retirement age or finish reading a book on mindfulness. No, it's a practice, a simple, sacred, daily practice. In the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha said, "Just as a skilled gardener waters the roots, not the leaves, so must we nourish the mind, not just the surface." So how do we do that? How do we become this unshakable one? Day by day, breath by breath. It starts each morning, not with a rush to the news or the endless scroll of opinions, but with stillness. Before the world asks anything of you, sit. Even if it's only 5 minutes, even if your joints ache or your thoughts wander, place your hand over your heart and ask, what is the weather inside me today? Not to fix it, just to see it. Because awareness is the first doorway to mastery. Then set your intention for the day, not to avoid stress, not to never feel, but to choose what you let in. To walk like the mountain, aware of the winds, but not swayed by them. As your day unfolds, carry with you 3 gentle anchors. 1. The breath. When things begin to stir, return to it. Let it slow you down. Let it remind you, this moment is not an emergency. 2. The pause. Practice the art of stopping. Before you speak, before you respond, before you believe every thought that passes through your mind. 3. The questions. When emotion arises, ask softly, does this deserve my peace? You'll be surprised how often the answer is no. And at the end of the day, return again to stillness, no matter what happened. Whether you were patient or reactive, peaceful or frustrated, release it. Like setting down a heavy coat at the door, you don't need to sleep in your burdens. Instead, reflect with compassion. Did I live today as the person I'm becoming? If not, that's okay. The path is not about perfection. It's about practice. Because here's the truth, my friend. You don't become unshakable all at once. You become unshakable every time you choose peace over noise, understanding over judgment, silence over reaction. Every time you sit with discomfort instead of running from it. Every time you forgive instead of gripping tighter. Every time you breathe instead of bursting. And when this becomes your way, your rhythm, your truth, others will feel it too. They'll soften in your presence. They'll sense something solid, still, trustworthy in you. Not because you've never been shaken, but because you've learned how to return. And that is the quietest, most powerful strength there is. Conclusion: the quiet strength within you. So let us take a deep breath together and gently return to what we've discovered. We began this journey by asking a simple but profound question. Why do some people remain unshaken while others seem to break with every breeze? And throughout our time together, we uncovered a path not paved with perfection, but with presence. We learned that emotional pain often begins not in the event, but in the story we tell ourselves about that event. That the outside world does not have to own our emotions unless we give it permission. We saw how detachment isn't coldness, but compassion without clinging. That the pause is not weakness, but power. That reclaiming our peace means no longer handing it out to every passing provocation. That true emotional immunity comes from mindfulness, not numbness. That we can rewrite the inner story, and in doing so, rewrite the life we live. And that to live as the unshakable one is not a trait, but a gentle, sacred daily choice. Yes, life will still challenge us. People will still disappoint. The body will still ache. But we now understand the storm outside doesn't need to become a storm within. So let me ask you something. What would your day look like if you didn't react, but responded with wisdom? How would your life feel if you stopped carrying what was never truly yours? Who might you become if you chose peace? Moment by moment, you have that power, and it's never too late to step into it, whether you're 60, 70, or 90. In fact, the later chapters of life are often the most fertile ground for real transformation, because now you're not here to impress, you're here to be, fully, quietly, truly. So as we end this journey, remember, you are not here to be shaken by the world. You are here to be rooted in it, to walk softly, to breathe deeply, and to live in a way that makes the soul feel at home, at last. If this message has touched something inside you, a memory, a longing, a truth you've always known, but perhaps forgotten, please consider subscribing to Quiet Wisdom. Here, we walk together. Here, we remember. Until next time, may your breath be steady, your heart be light, and your peace be unshakable.